Until such time as peace prevails and the biblical image of swords being beaten into plowshares does indeed come to pass, the adage, let those who desire peace prepare for war, must prevail. And for more than most, this is applicable to the peoples of South Africa. The fighting machine of South Africa today consists of men and material, tempered, honed and disciplined by wars and battles that have both plagued and honored this country through the generations of its spirited and inspiring history. Many of these are the descendants of famous and feared warriors and leaders such as Shaka, Mzilikazi, Khahabi, Makoma, Mshweshwe and others. Many of these have forefathers who number among the great Boer names that challenged an ambitious British Empire. Many are the sons of those who fought tyranny and fascism in two great wars, and many again there are who came from elsewhere to make this land their home and willingly risk their lives for its defense. These men are at the forefront of the fight. They are the ones who pay liberty's claimed price of eternal vigilance, and for some, the supreme sacrifice. Their efforts provide a redoubtable fist of steel, which has the respect and indeed the admiration of friend and foe alike. And certainly those who underestimate the might of this South African Defence Force do so at their peril.
We haven't had any military incursion across our borders on a significant scale during the past few decades, and I think that in a sense indicates how strong we are, because if you're in the world of power, of violence, it's very much the law of the jungle that prevails, and it's as simple as if you are weak, you'll be attacked. If you're strong, people avoid you.
And when the law of the jungle prevails within the African context, the South African fighting machine is indeed invincible. For the enemy, through the years, South Africa's across-the-border operations into Angola were disastrous occasions. In 1975, in support of UNITA, South African forces sliced through that country virtually to the outskirts of Luanda, turning back only because of American duplicity. In the years that followed, whenever the need arose, our forces lashed out, and operations such as Reindeer, Skeptic, Protea, Ascari, and most recently against SWAPO and its allies, resulted in bloody defeats and heavy losses. Recognition of SADF prowess and strength has come from far and wide. A Rockefeller Foundation survey has found that militarily South Africa is stronger than any opponent or coalition of opponents in Africa. In another assessment, the Hoover Institute has concluded South Africa's military power is enhanced by a substantial industrial and logistic infrastructure on a scale that has been attained nowhere else in Africa. International strategists whom we spoke to and who have first-hand knowledge of the SADF concur.
I find it a very tough, efficient defense force. Now, my prime interest in your defense force is its way that it's carrying on a counterinsurgency operation. Your defense force has done an admirable job on it, and I think the West can learn from it if it'd ever get off its moral high horse and look at things realistically.
I would say that if it came to the final push, if it actually came to a final conflict, a stand-up conventional war, there's no army on the African continent that could stand up to it for very, very long. They are equipped, motivated, and generally led so well that I don't see that there's any possible chance that they'll ever be beaten in a stand-up war.
In the African context, in my opinion, South Africa is clearly the single strongest sub-Saharan military power. There can be no question of this.
I have been very impressed by the efficiency of the South African Defence Force in many ways. in fact too numerous to go into in such a short interview. I'm extremely impressed.
Oh, more than capable. I think that the way you have been structured and the equipment that you've got and the way you've gone about it more than demonstrates that you're right on top.
And of South African soldiers in particular, General Sir Walter Walker, former NATO Commander-in-Chief, has declared, "They are among the best in the world. Indeed, I doubt whether such strong men, high leadership and sheer professionalism can be surpassed by any other country in the world today." Certainly, Chief of the Army Kurt Liebenberg has no hesitation over what he regards as most special in the Army.
It must be a manpower component. I have the greatest admiration for the adaptability, the courage, and the ingenuity constantly being displayed by the average South African soldier, irrespective of his color. And in particular, by our young junior leaders. I think they are of the best caliber you can find, and they can compare very favorably indeed with any other junior leaders in the world today.
This country's war against terrorists, communists and their surrogates is not a white man's war. In the past decade in particular, the black and brown peoples have evinced a soaring enthusiasm to throw in their weight behind the fight against those forces within and from without, who are intent on a violent takeover and a total transformation of the South African scene. Figures prove the point. Black and brown troops constitute some 40% of all soldiers deployed operationally within the Republic and along its borders. The Republic today provides less than half of the fighting soldiers in the Southwest African operational area, and 50% of these men from the Republic are black and brown. In support of statistics, there's sentiment and emotion, and both here at the predominantly Zulu 121 Battalion in Natal and at infantry school in the operational area, the identity and nature of the enemy provide no guessing game.
Well, the enemy is intimidating our country a lot because they are killing innocent people there. And they go and plant bombs into towns and so on.
I'm very fond in defending my country.
Against who?
Against the terrorists, especially Russia.
I regard the enemy like these other organizations like ANC, who are not, who are always against us, like SWAPO and all, who we used to fight with in the borders.
Because I like to protect our country.
Against who?
Against our enemy, like ANC, all those, like SWAPO.
They mustn't interfere on our land and also to take over to our country.
At infantry school, the best of the best are brought together for the junior leaders training course. These are the military leaders of tomorrow, and in the inhospitable, vast and arid expanses of the operational area, they are being schooled in both the rugged requirements and the technical skills essential in modern warfare. From all walks of life and diverse areas, they enter another world, where discipline, courage, fitness and reflexes are paramount, and where a buddy is a buddy, no matter who and where from. In this theatre of war, it is the mechanized units of the South African Defence Force that have been in the vanguard of the onslaught. And here the watchwords are speed, mobility, and a ferocious firepower. Attack at sunset and further into the night is a deadly serious business. Increasingly, South African offensives are being launched under cover of night, but the darkness itself can be both friend and foe, depending on the skills of the night fighters. The enemy has no shortage of Soviet weaponry, and when the South African armour and men launch themselves at their targets, the challenge is to run the gauntlet of automatic weapons fire, shrapnel, minefields and booby traps with a minimum loss of life. Someone once wrote that in every war they kill you in a new way. This is transformed from the cynical to the serious and sometimes quite sensational when the spotlight is thrown on the lineup of some of the Army's locally designed and built weaponry. The Rattle is the Army's jock of the bushveld, tough as nails and regarded with utmost respect and affection by those who depend upon it for their very lives.
Left 10 o'clock. You're behind bush. You're behind bush. 5 single shots on the piercing fire now. Okay, correction. Correction. Up 300. Up 300. Fire now. Firing now.
The Rattle ranks among the most highly and widely acclaimed of the arms corps weapons. Combat tested and proven on numerous occasions, there are several models of this versatile infantry fighting vehicle. One of the latest innovations is the Rattle 81, which has provided a deadly mobility to the 81mm mortars. Also having passed with flying colours tests in hammering the enemy are the Rattles 20, 60 and 90. Specially designed for South African conditions, they ride roughshod over the African terrain. An astonishing cross-country ability, according to Jane's military review.
Forces are definitely bulkhead and the spearhead of any conventional attack. The combination of high firepower, maneuverability, mobility and armor protection for the troops make it a definite component for success.
And it was a mortal hand and eye that framed this fearful symmetry. Based on the Centurion, the redesigned and rebuilt Oliphant tank is faster, more powerful, maneuverable, has a greater range and a far more destructive weapon system than its famous ancestor. Equally efficient at firing its 105mm gun at speed or stationary, the Oliphant contributes to a most credible armoured offensive capability. For the enemy, these mighty monsters, charging, churning, machine guns chattering and guns booming, must provide a most terrifying sight indeed. The G5 gun is a potent long-distance killer, saving the lives of our people, while many kilometers away the enemy is being torn to shreds. With a range of some 40 kilometers and a suitable variety of projectiles and fusers, the G5 is capable of pulverizing the most determined of defenses. An efficient crew can deploy the gun ready for action in a mere 2.5 minutes, and a single gun is capable of hurtling 3 projectiles a minute at a given target. For the men behind the G5s, working the weapon is a rewarding but trying task.
Oh, it's a tremendous bang. There's a up bang. There's a
but trying task.
Oh, it's a tremendous bang. There's a up sit in the tubula and the whole tubula just shakes when the bang goes off.
En hoe voel dit as hy afgaan? Dis iets, jy kan nie vir iemand verduidelik hier, en dis skok en stof en die rook is baie lekker.
The explosion, the force that it gives off is tremendous.
Die ore kan dit nie hou nie, dit is 'n geweldige druk wat jy moet ondergaan.
Yes, headaches. So yes, the gun we were trained in previously, the G2, that wasn't as bad as the G5. This has got a tremendous blow on you.
On the receiving end, the effect is devastating. And according to Battery Commander Major Theo Wilkin, it is not only the killing and maiming that tears the opposition to shreds, but equally horrifying is the paralyzing effects of high explosive shock waves.
You totally immobilize the target, and you get total neutralization of the target while the engagement is going on, and for a short while after that as well.
Where the description of the G5 given by Jane's Military Review reads, "as good as anything in the Western world, and in some respects even better," the self-propelled G6 is lauded in a 1987 edition of Jane's Defence Weekly as one of the best artillery systems in production. As speedy, mobile and maneuverable as the Rattle, this vehicle can move with the mechanized forces over and into any terrain, thereby boosting all the good qualities of the G5 with maximum mobility. As the G6 halts to fire, outriggers are pushed down to stabilize the vehicle and save the suspension. And 60 seconds after stopping, the first projectile is blasted on its way. Also figuring prominently in Arms Corps' artillery arsenal is the Valkyrie 127 multiple rocket launcher, the performance of which has relegated Russia's Stalin organ to something of sound and fury, but signifying nothing. With a range extending from 7,500 meters to 23 kilometers, this MRL's high fragmentation capacity provides a killing area of some 1,500 meters when used against troops who are in the open, in shallow trenches or soft-skin vehicles. No, it is not a Valkyrie striking a vehicle. It is a demonstration of a non-mine-proofed vehicle detonating a landmine and consequent action taken by the SADF Medical Corps assisted by the Air Force. When it comes to expertise and rapid treatment of the wounded, the SADF is hard to beat. Even in the heat of battle, there is no shirking the job. The medics immediately take over full responsibility for a wounded soldier and carry out all necessary tasks, allowing the fighting men to get along with their job. Surgeon General Nicol Nivout explains.
Our efficiency, I think, is improving all the time. Seeing that we have been busy now for more than a decade with this kind of warfare we are busy with. The reason for that is that our organization has been adapted to fit in with our needs. The manpower available, the expertise, and I think most important, the practical experience we've gained in the last number of years. But I think it rates very highly on the number of priorities for morale, is the knowledge any one of our troopies has insofar that if he does get injured or gets wounded, medical help will be immediately available, he will be taken care of in full, and everything that is necessary will and can be done. This is also passed down over the last number of years from one intake to another, and I think that's one of the reasons why the morale of the South African Defence Force personnel generally are so high, even under combat conditions.
There are many things that need doing prior to a battle ahead. Perhaps reading for the 10th time a letter from a loved one in the States. Perhaps some sustenance, proving that a troopie never bites off more than he can chew. And then all those preparations, so necessary for that which lies ahead. For the men of faith, these are precious and hallowed moments. For the Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day.
Elkeen van hierdie manne aan u op. U ken elkeen by die naam en daarom vra ons vir u. Neem hulle in u hand.
Ons wil wen. Nie ek nie, ons wil wen. Jy maak 'n bydrae. Ek sal die leiding gee. Jy sal die vyand dood. Ek sal vir jou sê hoe om dit te doen. Jy en ek is 'n span. En ons is 'n wenspan.